Hello, Reds. It is Live at 5 from This is Anfield and the Late Challenge. I'm Gareth Roberts. He's Paul Cope. And we are, of course, discussing Luton Town 1, Liverpool 1 yesterday. I think you've got to start, or I want to start, with Luis Diaz. Obviously, scores the goal in the 95th minute. Shows off the shirt, freedom for Papa. And yeah, it's just that, I think we all say at different points in our life, it's only football. It's only a football match. But this is one of those moments where you're like, wow. And what I loved about it as well is, it wasn't just the fact that it was him or the fact that he scored or the fact that how emotional he was. I love the way, their captain, Luton's captain, Tom Lockyer, is that how you say it? Lockyer. He comes straight over on the final whistle and, he's putting an arm around them and making a big effort. And I thought, you have all put everything you possibly could into that game, worked your arse off, had a bit of luck, looked like you'd nicked the goal, looked like you got the big win that your fans wanted to see, and that could, maybe launch some kind of escape from the relegation zone or whatever. And you've had it snatched away, and your first thought is not, oh, for fuck's sake type of thing. It's, I'll go and see that fella because that's a nightmare what he's going to. It was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all nice in the context, isn't it? I was surprised Klopp didn't say anything more about it afterwards, Joe, because after the last game he said that, how do you fucking prepare for a footy match when this is going on in the background and tell these lads it's important? And that was when Diaz still wasn't there. So Diaz has come back into training and he's there every day, and you're like, okay, now we need to go to Luton and beat these, and everyone's there going, his fucking dad's still been kidnapped, So, fair play to Klopp in many ways for not referencing it again. Because think of how, I know loads of people listening to this will be like, oh, fuck off, they're footballers getting paid loads of money. But we've said this a million times in our lifetime of doing podcasts together about that they are humans, doesn't matter how much money goes in your bank account at the end of the week. It must be fucking mad. And it's one of those things I don't think any of us can comprehend. I saw an interview with Alison on the club site, just watching stuff back again this morning, and he said, and they're his mates, bear in mind, they're like, none of us can comprehend what he's going through.
Of course not, yeah.
Imagine, how can you even begin to imagine what it's like for your dad to get kidnapped?
I know. The only thing I can think that has come close that I've ever seen like that, and obviously again the circumstances are different, but was just, Titi Kamara when he played for us after his dad had just passed away, and, obviously scores against West Ham, I think it was, and then he's immediately in tears afterwards, and you're just like, wow, do you know what I mean? And it's, Klopp did talk about it. Klopp did say, it was sort of his choice, and that it was helping him. It was almost like a bit of an escape for Diaz to play, to train and all that, and you can kind of understand that. And, the latest that, certainly just before we've come on air here, because we are doing this live, of course, you might be listening to it or watching it afterwards. But the latest we've heard is that, it's quite positive, and that, the group that have kidnapped his dad are sort of saying, we recognise we made a mistake and now we want to row back and we want to find a way to release him, but call off the dogs, essentially. So fingers crossed it gets the resolution that everyone wants. But in terms of the actual football and the way the game went, obviously lots of frustration. I think we talked about this game or this run of games, and we all sort of said, here's an easy run now for Liverpool. Here's a run of games where, they will definitely win that, and that. And then we'll be right up there. It's a chance to go to the top of the league, blah, 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 blah. I'm as frustrated as any Red about yesterday. And, I wanted us to win. I would have loved to be sitting here having won. I just think we shouldn't go too far the other way, though, just off, essentially one result. Look, we're going to come on to talk about, Liverpool's record away from home, Liverpool's record this season away from home, where they've dropped points. It's been away again, and obviously we saw what we saw last season. Then there's a record that we'll come on to talk about against promoted sides. I was feeling that, I've got to be honest. I was like, is this the fairy tale victory for the promoted side against Liverpool when it's on the telly again? Is it? Yeah, because I think a thing that doesn't get referenced in games like these is that, it being Sunday, it being R4, it being Liverpool coming to your ground. I heard one of the journalists say to the manager pre-match, these are the games that you look forward to when you come in the Premier. And he was like, yeah, I haven't slept all week prepping for it type of thing. And I thought, well, that suggests to me that you're doing something different all year to when anywhere else comes here then. Do you know what I mean? And so Liverpool have to deal with that. And look, Liverpool got enough quality in the team, in the squad, that they should be beating Luton. But, not everything goes your way. Do you know what I mean? And I just think, like, it's a blow. Of course it is. And the big winner from the weekend's Man City, isn't it? Because we've dropped points against Luton. Arsenal have been beaten in controversial fashion by Newcastle. They've tonked Bournemouth. And now it all feels a bit business as usual then. Is it? Yeah. That type of thing.
Yeah. And look, I was thinking about this morning, and I'm gonna jump ahead to use a stat that This Is Anfield tweeted, and you've thrown in our agenda for later, but I'm going to bring it forward just to throw it in for it, because I was thinking about this, about where your point about Rob Edwards saying those things. So for anyone who hasn't heard it, I'm sure you all have by this point, our record on the road against newly promoted sides, the last 10 visits to promoted teams, 3 wins, 2 defeats and 5 draws, 14 out of 30 points. In the same time, City have got 29 out of 33. And I was thinking about it, right? And I'm sure not any non-Liverpool fans watching this or listening to this, which I'm sure there are a few of you, I'll jump straight in with the fucking, exceptionalism and we think we're special and all that. But I think if you asked honestly, Rob Edwards and Luton's players, when they got promoted, who were they looking forward to playing? The difference between us and Man City is that Man City are one of the best football teams in the world now. But none of this generation have been brought up thinking of Man City as like the pinnacle of football. But they have been brought up thinking of Liverpool and Manchester United as the pinnacle of football.
And their dads.
Yeah, exactly that. So even look at, like, I've referenced him on our other show, like Postecoglou again. Brought up watching Liverpool.
Yeah.
His dad raised him watching Liverpool. So when it comes to who are you most looking forward to playing when you get promoted in your fairy tale season, who are you most looking forward to playing? I think Liverpool and Man United are your top. And it doesn't matter that Man City are boss. There just isn't the romance around that fixture. I think if they could pick who to beat, they'd pick us. And that's why you get these reactions. I've referenced this loads over the years, but the year we played Southampton and their manager sank to his knees and cried when they beat us. You're like, fucking hell, lads. Yeah. If anything showed you what it means to beat Liverpool, look at the reaction, not from a player, from the fucking manager on the side. You could see it watching it on telly, like the excitement of the fucking directors in the box during in that last 8 minutes.
As well, I mean, we'll come on to talk about, the unsavoury stuff from their fans, but like, there was a bit, wasn't there, where, like, because you see Trent laugh at it, like a lad almost like fronted him, didn't he?
Honestly,
I was stood up almost like that, and Trent was like,
yeah, all right, mate.
What are you doing?
I know. It was funny, but and look, we talk about this, don't we, when you come to Anfield and there's that atmosphere and the intimidation and all that. But the point I'm making here is, I think it is a reflection of how big a scalp Liverpool is. Not just because the fact we're a boss footy team again, but historically, it means a lot to play Liverpool. It means a lot to beat Liverpool. So I think that I know we're being compared to Man City's results because we're the two sort of front-running teams for the past few seasons. A couple of blips for us aside. But it's a pity United weren't as good in that spell for us to compare us to them. Because I think they've got the same romantic thing around them for opposition players and fans to come up against. Whereas I just don't think people are that arsed about City, so they don't get themselves up as much.
But we need to be wary of that. We need to recognise that is the situation. And, Ian there has said in the comments, we are inevitably every other team's cup final, and it'll never change. And so you need to be aware of that.
100%. I mean, this isn't me making excuses.
I wouldn't file yesterday with some of what was served up last season. I don't think it was that bad. But equally, there were certain vibes over certain things I saw. Like, do you remember we went and got beat by Forest? And it was like, it had that kind of vibe about it where you're just like, it doesn't feel like you're competing at the necessary level at all times, lads. Like, it feels like, some of yous have just taken your eye off the ball a little bit here. I mean, look, I love Trent. I love what he's done for the club. I love him as a player. But at times, he looks he looks languid. He looks like he's not putting a challenge in when he could be putting a challenge in. Do you know what I mean? And it's not a great look. And it's not just me that said that. Plenty of people have said that. And I thought there were moments like that yesterday. And, you know, lots of it felt like, you know, a bit of a throwback, didn't it? Like, you know, him being targeted, them hitting us on the break. You know, I was going to say their keeper having a blinder. I personally didn't think he had a blinder. He made some good saves, but there were saves you would expect them to make. Yeah. And I think, you know, there's really reactionary stuff in the comments here, in the live comments, which, you know, some of them don't even be taking a nod towards. But, like, I understand some of the criticism of Nunez, obviously, particularly, you know, whatever Mo and him were up to on that chance. You know, that's just wild, and it's really hard to get your head round. But on some of the others, I do feel like he's got a bit of a tendency to just, for want of a better phrase, just twat it. Do you know what I mean? And like there was a few of those where you just thought, you know, you could be a bit more cleverer, a bit more cuter there. He's unlucky with the one that it's the bar. That would have been a great goal. It's a great ball by Trent. It was a great run by him. You know, it was recognised by Trent, played into his path. And look, the attempt to put it away, well, it's millimetres away from being an absolutely beautiful goal. But I mean, you know, I was watching Match of the Day 2 last night, and like, I was just sort of like, I couldn't get my head around what I was hearing, really. Like, you know, Dion Dublin, okay, former Man United striker, as was referenced on the show. But, you know, he comes out and says that Luton have deserved to win the game. I don't think that's true, mate. Like, you know, they've had a plan, okay, sound. But like, like almost like an FA Cup tie. They've absolutely defended for their lives. Liverpool have sort of shot themselves in the foot in terms of how they've played and set up a little bit. The strikers haven't put it away as they should do. Deserve to win. You know, XG is 3 for Liverpool and 1 for Luton. And like, you know, if you see a map of, you know, all the chances, there's a shitload of dots all around Luton's box and not so much around Liverpool. You know, they scored a breakaway goal. I don't think that was great, by the way. I think it's Tsimikas. He should just take Barkley out, shouldn't he? Barkley shouldn't be allowed to stroll through and play that pass.
Yeah, well, I meant to watch it again before we started recording today, and I forgot because I watched it a few times, and every time I was like, "Who's that?" And you said it was Tsimikas, but I'm happy to blame him because of all of our players. I shouldn't say I'm happy to blame him. That's not fair. Before everyone starts kicking off on me, yeah. Of all our players, Tsimikas baffles me.
Yeah,
he baffles me from a Klopp and Linda's perspective. That Tsimikas reminds me of Alberto Moreno, and I thought Alberto Moreno was the type of lad Klopp couldn't wait to get out of the club. Do you know what I mean?
He's like a bit of a headless chicken type.
Shaqiri. Like a lad who's clearly a good footballer, clearly has got ability, plays international football.
Does daft things,
but does fucking mad daft things. Like, I think the theme of yesterday, there's so much, so much to talk about, but the theme of yesterday, which is when people are saying, can we still win the league? Will we still win the league? The difference between yesterday and when we won the league under Klopp was when we won the league under Klopp, as you're referencing there, we went into every game like, we're going to beat you against every side. You don't win that many games on the run from the start of the season without that attitude. We went into that season going, fuck Man City and fuck everybody else. We're winning this league, and everyone who stands in our way, we're just going to destroy because we're going to outwork you. And as soon as we outwork you, we're better than you. And that's what I expected us to do yesterday.
Yeah,
we're going into that game knowing how hard they're going to run, like an FA Cup tie, as you like rightly referenced. We know how hard they're going to run. We know how tightly they're going to defend. We know they're going to throw everything in front of every shot we have. So we're going to outplay you. We're going to outfight you, and then our quality is going to come through, even if that means it's the last 20 minutes when you're knackered and we're going to pull you to bits. And that just didn't happen. And Tsimikas is a perfect example of this. Do you know, even after we'd scored, the commentators were like, it's not over this. There was 2 minutes left. And in one of those 2 minutes, Tsimikas fouled someone, one of their defenders, down by the corner flag. And even Carragher went in commentary, stupid. That is absolutely, and that's the bit for me I can't comprehend, that they've given him a new contract when I thought they'd sell him in the summer. That is brain dead. It's absolute brain dead football, because they're even thinking after we equalise, oh no, we're going to lose this game. And we should have at least created 2 more chances to give us a chance. And it didn't happen. At the same time as all of that, because I'm with you, like, we just didn't look like we went into the game thinking we need to match them. because even Klopp said, didn't he, and he was furious about it, there was no counter pressing in the first half, and it was only a little bit better in the second half, in his own words. Even with that, and this is why I think it's a bit mad that Homes Under the Hammers Dion Dublin said that they deserved to win.
Stairs leading to the bedroom. Yeah. Stairs leading to the bedroom.
Like, I think you should stick to the Homes Under the Hammer stuff, Dion, if I'm honest. Like, most people, loads of football fans will take highlights and make their whole judgment about a game from highlights, which is a dangerous thing to do. But I think the one time to look at highlights is in games like this, because I've done this over the years, where when you watch the whole game, you can come away from a Liverpool fan's perspective thinking, were we that good? Like, did we deserve to win? But if you just strip it down to the highlights and go, how many shots did we have and how many chances did we have compared to them? We should have won the game. And in the other thing about us, the year we won the league, we won games like that. And then no one talked about the performance. I was at Sheffield United that year. I'm sure that was the title winner side. And we beat them 1-0. And
it was the keeper threw it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to that.
Gini Wijnaldum hit a scuffed shot from the edge of the box. It went through thingies. It was Dean Henderson, who was boss that year. It went through his hands, through his legs, and into the goal. And we won 1-0. We could have got beat that day easily, but we didn't. So no one talked about it again.
I know.
And yesterday, we should have won. And then if we'd have taken one more of those chances, there's people, I think Steve Nicol was talking about it like we got beat.
Yeah, he was.
Typically.
Yeah.
Like, I nearly did it then.
Well, this is my thing. Before we even started the show, comments were coming in, and I was like, I'm looking at the comments, and it's like we got beat. We got a draw, and like you can put your narrative on this, and you can say it was a bad day at the office. Things didn't go our way. Our strikers were misfiring, and we got a point. And so, won't that still be good for morale? Won't that still be good for spirit? Isn't it better to get 1 point than no point? And I get that it's Luton, and I get it's a game you should have won.
But in the context of your mate's dad's been kidnapped. I think we've put it, even though he's played, he's scored, he's done his t-shirt thing, everyone's quickly forgotten that. Like, this is, like, it's hard to prepare for football games when this is going on in the background.
I mean, just to run through the stats that seemingly Dion Dublin didn't have. Liverpool 74%. And look, I know the top one that counts 1-1 before someone puts it in the comments, but 74% possession for Liverpool, 24 shots to Luton's 8, 6 on target to Luton's 5, which, okay, some argument there, I guess. 7 corners for Liverpool to Luton's 4. And then big chances, Liverpool had 6 and missed all of them. Luton had 2 and missed 1 of them. We did, of course, hit the woodwork as well. Shots inside the box as well, which I would say is another indication. Liverpool 15, Luton 5. Klopp said after the game, we didn't deserve more than a point. We should have done better. Credit to Luton and how they defend and how they set up. But it was mainly up to us. We had a lot of chances and we should have had lots more. We could have won the game and we should have won. But all the chances we missed or didn't create, that was the result we deserved and that Luton deserved as well. We have a point more than we had before the game. It's not our dream result, but we're old enough to accept that. I mean, you mentioned the stat before that Joanna Durkin tweeted about Liverpool's record against promoted sides away from home as well. I'm glad that, we've got a point at the very least. And I don't think we need to go that extreme about this result personally. That's my viewpoint. People in the comments have obviously got different viewpoints. I don't think we need to go mad about this too much. Do you know what I mean? Like, you look at the Bournemouth game in the League Cup. Okay, it's only the League Cup and some people aren't asked and all that. Wild, like playing footy in a hurricane, and like the fella who's now getting slagged off because he's missed sitters or whatever and has had 9 shots and not put one of them in the back of the net this weekend. In the week scored a beauty, and in general has been playing well. And okay, he didn't have a good day. There's no other way to sort of polish the turd on that one. He didn't have a good day yesterday, Darwin. Does that mean that we now throw him, throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say it's not good enough? We know that he's a bit erratic. We know that he's a bit mad, but he's also proven already that he's a match winner. Newcastle. Well,
it's funny though, isn't it, mate? Because we've talked about this off air, about what does the current world want online. And it seems that, like, in the short term, everybody wants reactionary shit.
Yeah.
So, like,
That's what we should do on this show.
Today, Nunez is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
that's what the video should be.
Yeah.
Is Nunez good enough for Liverpool?
Yeah.
Well, it was an absolute disgrace yesterday, and we should hang him up, throw stuff at him, and sell him in January because he's not good enough, and we should go and buy someone else. Will that mean we get thousands of hits now?
Yeah. And then next week, and then next week when he scores 2 match-winning goals in the away game with 10 men, or a winning goal in the cup, then we go the other end of the spectrum and say, is he the greatest Liverpool centre-forward of all time?
Yeah.
And that's the problem with all of this for loads of people in the world. And luckily, the people we appeal to, I think, are the people who are more like us, who go, yeah, it's somewhere in the middle. Like, I've never worried about Nunez. We've talked about him in the past. Listen to the fucking strikers on telly, the former strikers who talk about him. Guess what? Missing big chances is a good thing in the young strikers' development. Not good because you'd obviously rather he took them all, but good that he's in the position and he's getting the chances in the first place. Loads of strikers don't get those chances because they're not making the right movements, blah, blah, blah. He had an off day. He wasn't the only one, was he? You referenced before another fella who we've had to defend amazingly and still have to defend. Mo Salah wasn't great. And for that one where everyone was furious that Nunez missed like a ball that was bounced up. He wasn't teeing him up
there. He was going for goal.
Like, it was a fucking 50p.
50p,
what was it? Like, if Mo Salah just buries the header, which he fucking should have done, it never comes to Nunez in the first place. And Nunez is probably there going, I wasn't expecting it, to be honest, lads, because he's meant to head that at the goal, not back towards me. Because
he's 5 yards out, and I just thought he was going to head
just
it in.
Bury it, and I'm ready to celebrate. So it's not just Nunez, and to pin things on him, I just think is crazy and unfair, especially, as you say, with the season he's had already.
Well, what you say about sort of great players or good players or whatever missing these what optical big chances. There's a thing in the Times today, and they've sort of, it's a box a box out in the main piece, if you like, and it says wasteful Nunez. And the way they've pitched it is only 2 players have missed more of what optical big chances in the Premier League this season, and both of them have scored more than Nunez. So those players that have missed more big chances than Nunez are Erling Haaland and Ollie Watkins. And okay, Erling Haaland scored 11, Ollie Watkins has scored 5, and Nunez has scored 4. And Nunez was missed 3 big chances on Sunday.
Yeah, but you think about this, right? You said before about narrative.
Yeah.
That article is I know this is subtle, right? But in your former profession, you'll have got onto this as well. The little box says wasteful Nunez as a statement, not as a question. There should be a question mark on that, like wasteful Nunez question mark, because then the comparison, and this just shows you how narratives develop. That he's compared to, and this proves my point that I'm saying. I remember seeing this a few years ago about Salah, right? And it was a thing. It just came up on Sky. I think I've said this to you in the past, maybe not on a show. It was top goal scorer in the league, top chances created in the league, top assists in the league. Salah's at the top of all of them. Then another thing came up. No one even mentioned it. Most chances missed in the league. Mo Salah. Because guess what? To score loads of goals, you have to miss loads of goals as well.
Goal,
because nobody has got. I use this in coaching. This fact. If I say to people, I said it to my nephew once because he was beating himself up about missing chances playing youth football. I said to him, "How many chances do you think it takes Lionel Messi to score a goal?" And he went, "What do you mean?" I went, "Lionel Messi's arguably the greatest player of all time. How many goals? How many chances do you think? How many times he has to shoot to score a goal?" And he went, 2. I went, yeah, that's what it feels like, doesn't it? If he had every other shot he has, he scores. It takes him between 6 and 7. His conversion rate is about 16%. But we've all got it in our head that if you don't score every other chance you get, you're shite. And you're like, this proves it. Erling Haaland has missed 11 big chances. And he's thought of, I would say, at the moment as the best striker on the planet. So he's also scored 11 goals. Great. So forget that. Park that for a second, right? Because I don't think anyone's trying to compare Nunez to Haaland now.
Not anymore.
But yeah, I mean, we tried when he came in, didn't we? The better comparison is Ollie Watkins. Look at the way the media talks about Ollie Watkins at the moment.
Scored 1 more than Nunez.
He scored 1 more than Nunez, and he's missed more.
Yeah.
But he's talked about like he's the second coming. What's Emery done to Ollie Watkins? Turned him into this amazing player, blah, blah, blah. Nunez is talked about like he's some pariah because he misses too many chances. You're like, he's better than Ollie Watkins. So why are we talking about them so differently?
I know.
He's only going to get better. He's already better now than he was last year. Klopp said in his pre-match press conference, it's easier to coach him this year. He speaks English for a start.
And by the way, Villa were apparently, dark horses for the Premier League last week, based on a lot of the media I heard, and now they've got beat by Forest.
There we go.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, we can't, we're not trying to dress up what went on there. It was disappointing, like we said at the top of the show. And, there's lots of stuff you can break down and say, like even Szoboszlai, who we've come on and raved about week after week.
Shite.
Is Dom Szoboszlai good enough for Liverpool? But,
comparisons with Steven Gerrard, absolute shite.
What's he doing?
Number 8.
Not fit to wear the number 8.
Shouldn't be wearing the number 8 shit.
But, he had a bit of an off day. I've got to say that I was still surprised to see him hook, though, regardless of an off day for him, given what he's capable of. I didn't think McAllister was great.
Well, I have a big point on that. Again, when you're criticising people, performances, blah, 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 you've hooked Szoboszlai, who they referenced earlier in the commentary, I think he's the third. He's the third in the list of top speeds recorded in the Premier League this year. They hooked him against a side that is for a start, is a counter-attacking side. The only way they're going to score against you is with a set piece or a counter-attack.
On the wing.
Pacey lad on the wing. You take him off and you leave on your number 6, who has been booked and has already shown a couple of times since being booked, it's in his head about being booked because he's holding back on tackles and he's not very pacey. Guess what? Watch the counter-attack back. And I really like McAllister. I think he's great. But we've talked about he's not a 6, blah, blah, blah. Everyone knows that. We wanted a 6. We didn't buy him. We've criticised that at the beginning of the season. We don't want to bang on about it. But McAllister, when he's trying to get back on that break, is the lad chasing shadows of the lad who scores because he's just not fast enough to catch him. If you just switch that and that's Szoboszlai there, do you know what happens with that break? The lad crosses it and Szoboszlai clears it because he's quick enough to keep up with the lad who's running through on the centre of goal. And look, that's very black and white of me to say because you don't know where Szoboszlai would have been in the box, blah, blah, blah. But I think for me, that's a big mistake to hook him and leave McAllister on. Or even if, you want to take off Szoboszlai, to leave McAllister on the pitch. There were so many other things you could have done to play someone else in that role for the last half hour of the game who hadn't been booked and had a bit more pace.
There's a few things, wasn't there, that I think you can say with hindsight, didn't work. Like I see a lot of people in the comments saying, and I've seen a lot of people in general saying that they didn't think Gomez worked at left back. We've already covered Tsimikas, and I don't think Tsimikas has been great since Robbo got injured. So I didn't think it was the biggest surprise in the world.
Tell you someone else who doesn't think Tsimikas has been great since Robbo got injured.
Klopp.
Yeah. And that's my problem with it. Because you're going away from home against the side who you're going to have 70% possession and you need attacking options and you're playing a centre-back, left-back who hasn't played left-back for ages.
And he's right-footed.
Yeah.
I know, I get all that, but equally I didn't think it was the maddest shout. Personally, when I saw it, I thought, well, I can understand because, he's not played well. So, you can point that out. We've already said about the midfielders and, they didn't have a great day. Mo didn't have a great day. In terms of a positive, obviously, the man at the top of the show, Diaz, but also as well, Elliott, a positive again coming off the bench. It's him who crosses for Diaz. And he just seems to, you don't want to pigeonhole him as a sub, especially at that age, but it's working at the moment, I think is the point. When I see him coming off the bench now in whatever Liverpool game it is, I think he'll do something here. He'll have a positive impact, and he did again yesterday. Yeah,
it's one of them catch-22s for Elliott, isn't it? If you're him or his agent or his family, you're like, like I want to come on and make an impact, but I'm sort of, what you're just saying, I'm sort of boxing myself here as the lad whose boss are coming off the bench. I think the only flip side to that point is, for him in that sense, is that I think football is changing now, and with the 5 subs and all of that, there there is an argument that you could say, be the lad who is boss of coming on for half an hour and scoring goals and creating goals. And I remember saying that about Nunez at the start of the season. I could have seen Nunez getting 20 goals coming off the bench for the last half an hour because that impact will be really good. So I think the problem Elliot's got, and we touched on this in the past, and I'm not sure about him starting games. The problem he's got
when
is
Gravenberch looks good.
Well,
do you know what I mean? And it felt like it was between them two, didn't it?
I think there's an issue here, and even if you're Curtis Jones, we last year we were talking about Elliot and Curtis Jones vying for position, and at the start of the season and the bit before that, it looks like Elliot had got ahead of him, and then the end of the season when Curtis Jones broke away from his injuries and got a run, you're like, oh, he's gone well ahead of you. I think Gravenberch has come in, and everyone's sort of gone, he's at another level.
Yeah,
this lad, isn't he? And if I'm Curtis Jones and Elliot, I'm looking at him going, fucking hell, I need to up my game more here. Because
they'll all play though, won't they? This is the thing as well. Yeah. Like, we're going to get out. We're going to, march on. Is probably a bit dramatic, but we're going to march on in the Europa League. We're through in the League Cup. The games will start to mount up, and they'll all get a go. They'll all get a chance.
Well, Klopp made that point, didn't he? When he got asked, I think he got asked something like, Joe, is Nunez in your team now? And he said, they're all in my team.
Yeah.
That's the answer to that. Like, they can't all play, they all know. They can't all play every game.
Just seen in the comments, I do always like to just pull one out of a spot, a good one. Angel 1968 Able. Interesting username. But just said that against Wolves, Klopp did hook McAllister, and he asked Szoboszlai to go a bit deeper, more central, and it worked. So there is the hindsight thing there of saying, well, maybe it could have done yesterday, but it's gone and it's done.
I think the other option was if you were going to bring Tsimikas on, which I wasn't averse to Tsimikas coming on. You could have moved Gomez to right back and put Trent as the 6, and instead of him playing the hybrid role. There were other options, and I do think the fact that he was on a booking was massive. Because I think Klopp referenced we shouldn't have lost the challenge on the edge of the box for the goal. And I think there was a bit of a subtext in that if you're not going to win the ball there, just take the man. But your problem when you're playing McAllister there and he's on a booking, he can't take anyone out once it's broken past him.
Well, next game anyway, we'll have to do something different because he's now he's out anyway because he's got 5 bookings, hasn't he? The other thing about, and I think we're touching on the show, and I'm glad we are, is that, the way the media covers Liverpool, the way there are conversations about Liverpool, even what other YouTube channels do and certain people and the way they pitch things. So we're basically saying like Nunez is a problem off the basis of one game, which is a load of bollocks. But we're also seeing, Liverpool were poor away from home last season. But last season, was in general a write-off, like 14 defeats in all comps and all the rest of it. What people are doing now, and I understand why, and I've done it myself to an extent in this agenda. You look at all of Liverpool's results this season, and I've got them in front of me here, and you go, okay, they drew with Chelsea away. They lost to Tottenham Hotspur. Well, that can fuck off because I'm never letting it go. We drew to Brighton at Brighton 2-2, and now we drew with Luton. So people are now going to go inevitably, well, there's 4 games and they're all away from home. So have Liverpool got an issue away from home then?
But the answer to that is no, isn't it? And I think that the sad thing in this is, and as you said, we've talked about Spurs. We're going to go on to talk about Arteta later, and he can fuck off as well. Just to get that in, early. Yeah. It's only the Luton game. What did you say the 3 draws were?
Chelsea, obviously opening day 1-1 at Stamford Bridge.
Brighton
2-2 and Luton.
So out of them,
and then the Spurs, which is doesn't go.
So Spurs is a nonsense anyway, and we should have at least got a point out of that game, maybe a win. If you'd have got 3 draws, well, even with forget that, right? We got beat by. Let's just park the other thing and say we got beat by Spurs. You've played away at Chelsea, away at Brighton, away at Spurs, and you've picked up 2 points from those games. The only game out of them that's disappointing is a draw away at Luton, because we've already played, and we've been saying this, and that's the other disappointing thing about the Luton results, is we said last week, the sign of a side and whether it can win the league is whether it beats all this shite, because we've got the tough games out the way. That's the most disappointing thing about it. Then. But we'll
all be happy. That's a big thing. Imagine doing this show and like Liverpool have gone to City and won.
Yeah,
is that beyond the realms? I wouldn't say it's beyond the realms.
I wouldn't say it is at all. And there will be other people say this, and I'll say this as well, playing devil's advocate. We will do that thing then where we're like, fucking hell, well, if we'd have beaten Luton, we'd be 2 points ahead of them now. And that's just the way it is being football fans. But I don't think it's a concern. And I think, to put it all in perspective, we're in a better position now than any of us thought we were going to be in coming into the season. Yeah. If before this season started, you'd have said to everyone, I guarantee you a top 4 finish, most Liverpool fans would have taken that. I don't think most Liverpool fans thought there was a title challenge on the cards, being realistic. We're being optimistic and all the rest of it, which me and you are all on board with. But the fact that we're going into this stage of the season 3 points behind City, there are pros and cons to that, like positives and negatives. I think it's a shame. I think that's my big thing. It's a shame because they've lost some games, and they lost them when Rodri was out. And you wonder how many more points they'll lose without big players missing. Because everyone keeps forgetting as well with them, De Bruyne's been out most of the season. Yep. And I don't know when he's due back, but at some point he's going to come back. And he's arguably the best player in the world, or one of them. So that's sad. That's a disappointment, and that's sad. But if we finish second to City this year, it's not a bad season. We've been saying since the summer, Klopp has been saying this is year one. Well, in year one, if you finish runners up to City when no one expected you to, I think you mentioned last week, no one predicted us to finish in the top 2, did they? In the BBC things or Sky thing, whichever it was. So if we finish second this year, and then we buy the 6 that we all know we need and a new defender in January or the summer, going into next year, think about the age of our squad. Like, it's unbelievable.
Good to hear from Snoop Dogg there, who tells us that he's eating magic mushrooms with his nan on the couch.
Oh, sound. Yeah. Snoop Dogg, Snoop Dogg's a big fan of the show, isn't he?
Seemingly so.
Snoop Dogg and his nan.
So yeah, Toulouse next up for Liverpool, away on Thursday, and then we've got Brentford at home on Sunday before we go to Manchester City on the 25th of November. Other stuff that we need to sort of mention, really sadly, again, is bell ends, essentially. And there's no other sort of way to talk about it, really. I don't understand what Luton's beef with Liverpool, or some of Luton's support, what their beef with Liverpool would be, where they've got to, reference tragedies, where they've got to sing about things that relate to Hillsborough or Heysel. And I thought it was really good that, Jamie Carragher mentioned it, because I feel like that's something that we've said for a long, long time now, is that we can all hear it in the grounds. When you go to a match, you can hear it. When you watch it on the telly, you can hear it. And for years, for a long time, we were always like, well, how come the media don't mention it? How come Neville Carragher on Sky? How come Henry Winter? Whoever, how come they all don't mention it? They're all mentioning it now. And I think this is a huge step in the right direction. And there's a big pat on the back for people who've gone to a big effort to put this on the agenda, put it in front of people like Carragher, put it in front of people like, Winter, etc. There are conversations now all the time between supporter groups, between the Premier League. Obviously, like I say, Carragher himself said something on air and then followed it up with a tweet afterwards as well. I mean, inevitably, you see, some grim reaction, some what aboutry and all that kind of stuff. But some of the work that's going on is really, really good. Like, they're getting stuff into schools now, talking about Hillsborough, talking about Heysel, talking about disasters, talking about the impact on people this has. This is not in any book, in any way, banter. This genuinely sends people, down in the dumps. Why all these years on are people singing that at me? Why are people doubting all these years on what unfolded at Hillsborough? Why are you making out my dad or my son or my brother or whoever, was what wasn't wronged in some way? Do you know what I mean? And that you know, that is so far over the line, it's unbelievable. So yeah, Jamie said something on air and followed it up saying every fan base has been guilty at one time or another of tragedy chanting. It's not about point scoring between fans. It's about football fans coming together as one and saying enough is enough and this is not acceptable anymore. Hopefully that work will continue and we'll see it less and less. It feels like, it's sort of... To hear it yesterday was a little bit like, well, what's that about? Do you know what I mean? Because it has definitely lessened. I feel like there's been an effect already. And, you saw the other end of the spectrum with Forest fans doing loads of good work, doing a lot of positive stuff around this. So to have that followed up by this, and a lot of it's just baffling as well. I can only presume that some of these people doing it, again, for want of a better phrase, are just thick as fuck. I can't think of any other way to put it, because you had the chance about, always the victim. You had chance about poverty. Like you're singing, you're in Luton, which has got loads of social deprivation problems, and you're singing to Liverpool fans about poverty. Well, I'm baffled, mate, because you're seeing poverty on your own doorstep. You're seeing poverty every time you walk up and down the high street. So what are you talking about? Why do you think it's funny? And why do you think it's something you should throw around at a football match? Don't understand. Higher than average levels of unemployment and deprivation, and high levels of child poverty. That's from Luton Council's website. They also referenced, there was also a song that went out there about "We never played in Europe because of you." Now, they won the 88 League Cup, so that would have got them a place in Europe. But obviously all English teams were banned post-Heysel. I mean, if anyone needs reminding out there, it was 38 years ago. So, if you haven't played in Europe for 38 years, might be the way your club was run. Do you know what I mean? Might be like loads of reasons beyond looking at what Liverpool fans or some Liverpool fans did once in a stadium. And I wrote a big piece on this because, I'm quite passionate about it. And I just think it just needs to be jibbed. We need to all move on and be a bit better than this now. And they're not playing in Europe because of us. So if we wanted to all be, or if they all wanted to be, or some of their fans wanted to be knobheads about this applies to Everton, Man United, Spurs, Southampton, Norwich, West Ham, Sheffield Wednesday, Oxford, Coventry, Arsenal, Wimbledon, Forest and Derby. Now, we managed to play a lot of those games and I don't hear nothing. So why did a significant number of Luton yesterday feel they were different and felt it was a place they needed to go? It's just baffles me. Yeah,
well, it baffles me too. And look, I think it's worth stressing what Carragher said. And fair play to him. When I nearly messaged you actually while watching the game, I thought we'll end up talking about it anyway. Fair play to him for calling it out. You could hear in his voice. He was like, I have to do this,
Yeah.
I'm involved in this, so I'm going to say it live on telly.
He made a piece on it, didn't he? It was really good.
Fair play to him. But just to expand on his tweet, when Jamie Carragher says every fan base has been guilty of this, he's including ours.
Yeah.
I have been, as a younger person, in crowds where we've sang about the Munich air disaster.
Same.
And I don't look back on that with any pride. Do you know what I mean? But if you'd have stopped me after that game when I was 16 or whatever I was and said, what were you singing about? I'd have been like, well, we sing about that and they sing about that. And that's where education comes in. Because now as a 43-year-old man, I wouldn't fucking dream of singing about people dying.
Yeah.
And if there was someone next to me singing about it, or a 16-year-old next to me, I'd say to him, mate, do you even know what you're singing about? Because it's not funny. People died and that's not okay. You
can see the ignorance in it. Henry Winter, a reference, obviously wrote a piece today for the Times, like a match report, but he knows that it on some of the chants, and the headline was about the chants, and there are people in the comment box on the Times, which was meant to be highbrow of sorts, grown men, I would suspect, going on about oh well, it's all right when Liverpool do X or blah 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 blah, and literally there was one comment which triggered me and I replied to it. And he said 39 Italians. Wasn't 39 Italians who died at Heysel, mate? And it just proves the ignorance. You don't care about those people. You don't care what happened. You don't care that was a tragedy. It's just point scoring. That's all it is, to get a reaction. For what? For what? And like, you know, even the sort of, you know, like we're not in Europe because you, like, go back and educate yourself about what football was like at that time. And if you genuinely think a section of Liverpool supporters acted in a way that other sets of supporters hadn't, you know, and other sets of supporters was some kind of angels at that time, well, no, that's not how football was. You know, there are a list as long as your arm of incidences that went on with English clubs, and that you know, Heysel was the final straw, and that's why. And my overriding opinion about Heysel is that it's incredibly sad, you know. And the piece I tried to write on the last anniversary of it was, let's have some consideration of the people who lost, you know, loved ones at that, in the way that we want that for Hillsborough. And it, you know, it shouldn't be thrown around as like, you know, like murderers and all that kind of stuff. It's just incredibly grim. I actually said in that piece, and I still think it's a thing, by the way, that I think Liverpool should still be doing a bit more. Like, I think the memorial isn't in a good place at the ground. You can't actually get to it currently, except on a match day. So that shouldn't be the case. It should be public. It should be in a place that, because you don't know, we don't know, Liverpool don't know. There could be someone who did lose someone and they want to come and see Anfield one day, and they want to see what Anfield's done to commemorate the person they lost. Yeah. And if it's behind the gate, well, it's not a great look, is it? So anyway, we'll move on from that. But
just to finish that, mate, like, I think that's right, and I think we need to. I'm glad Carragher's highlighted it, and David Conn, who tweeted about it as well, who is a friend of the Hillsborough campaign throughout the years. Like, it's important what you've just said, that more needs to be said about it, more needs to be done about it. Educating kids in school about it is great, and at the same time, most of the people singing at that football match were grown people. Yeah. So have a word with yourself. If you're commenting on the internet about these things with the whataboutery, and you know, you're making these comments about 39 dead and blah blah, have a word with yourself. Think about, just take a second, have a breath before you jump into this stuff and start throwing things around, and just remember what it is you're talking about. Because it's not very nice. Do you know what I mean? It's fucking grim, to use your word. Exactly. And, you know, it's the same with, you know, like you said before about Munich, you know, like I got something back on Twitter last night from someone saying, well, what about, you know, he said, actually, are you saying Liverpool fans have never sang about Munich? And I said, no, I'm not. Where does it say that? And what anything I've said? Because like you, I can remember, I wrote a piece about this ages ago. I called it Tragedy Tennis, and said it's just sad that we keep going backwards and forwards. You did this, so we're going to do that. You did this, so we're going to say that. Just fuck it all off. Stop it then. Just all be better now. Do you know what I mean? But isn't it mad? Like, no one's saying don't have a go at each other at the match. I love having a go at away fans. Yeah. I love being in an away end and having a go at the home fans. Yeah. But just recognise there's a line and just don't go over it. Yeah, but it's mad, isn't it? That, like, I know two separate things, but both involve death, that we've referenced in this week and last week, which is mad on Footy Show. But it's mad that, like, last week we said, can't we just all agree that nobody should be killing innocent people? And that seems, Joe, you'd think that would be an uncontroversial thing to say, but apparently not. And then this week it's, can we not just all agree we shouldn't be singing about people dying at football matches? And still, you don't seem to be able to get a consensus, and that's fucking mad. Like, and you know what? That's me being harsh and dramatic, because we shouldn't take what people are saying on the internet as consensus. No. I think actually, if you got most people in a room and said to them, do you agree with this? They'd say yeah. Yeah. So I think where we should all get back to is, we should all do a bit more about it. So if you're standing next to someone at the football match, I would, and they said it, say to them, jib that. Yeah, because, you know, you shouting out one thing ends up tarring a whole group of supporters. Like, you know, because we can hear that on the telly yesterday from Luton fans. So we now talk about Luton fans, don't we? Exactly. Whereas there'll be plenty of people in that ground who didn't sing a thing, or certainly didn't sing any of that. And don't agree with it. Because I'm glad you made that point, because there was a very small thing that I got onto over the weekend that made me chuckle, because I think it is funny. And fair play to the person who wrote this. So I went to Marines FA Cup match at the weekend, and they played Harrogate, who were like League Two.
And it ended up being like a fairly convincing win for Harrogate. They won 5-1 in the end. But, you know, Marine did give them a bit of a scare early on and sort of got into them a bit after a poor start. But anyway, but, you know, it was segregated, which it's not normally at Marine. And there was over 2,000 people there. And, like, you know, some of their end had Union Jacks and all that kind of stuff. So there was a few Tories songs lashed out, like, do you know what I mean? And I saw a post from Marine, as in the footy club, on, you know, on social media after, like, the next day or whatever, and some lad had put in the reply saying, just wanted to say, like, I thought Marine played well, gave us a scare, you know, the number 7 was great, blah, 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 blah. And he said, by the way, we're not all Tories in Harrogate, you know. And it just made me laugh because, you know, that's a thing, isn't it? Like, it's a thing that footy fans can do at the time of, like, oh, well, Luton were singing that. No, some of them were.
Yeah.
Bellends were.
Yeah.
And anyone who goes down that road, no matter who they support, if they support us, if they support them, if they support United, if you're going down this road of singing songs about disasters or dead people and looking for a reaction because of that, well, you're a knobhead and just pack it in. Speaking of knobheads, Mikel Arteta.
Nice segue.
So he's absolutely fuming that Newcastle's goal could have been ruled out in 3 different ways. Which you can, you know, kind of got some sympathy for. I would say 2 out of the 3 aren't in any way defo. Like, so, you know, whatever angle they were showing about the ball going out of play, it was quite clear they didn't have a conclusive one. Equally, the offside, probably, you know, similar. I think it's the push where you would say, well, okay, yeah, probably should have been ruled out for 2 hands in someone's back. But either way, I don't really want to go into, like, you know, the decision itself. It's more the reaction to it, both from him as the Arsenal manager and then Arsenal as the club. And we all know what happened to Liverpool. We all know how people reacted about what we said about Spurs. You know, we ended up doing basically a whole special show on it. You said the other week, mate, and it immediately came to mind when I was thinking about this. You said when Liverpool came out and said what they said and put the statement out and said, that was the time when Arteta, Gary O'Neill, you know, Dyche is another one I've seen cry arson quite regularly as well. Mm-hmm. You know, all of these managers and the clubs above them, that was their opportunity to come together, come in behind Liverpool and say, not good enough this. We need to have a look at this, lads. This needs to change. This needs to improve. We don't think this is good enough for our product, our sport, our league. What did they actually do? Fuck all. So if we're now meant to have sympathy for Arteta or think it's a good idea that they've put a statement out now, you know, he's come out afterwards, after Liverpool's incident, and said, we have to understand that mistakes happen. In front of a camera, in front of microphones. And now he's saying, I feel embarrassed. I have to be the one coming here to defend the club, ask for help. It's an absolute disgrace that this goal isn't allowed. An absolute disgrace. And then the club statement says, Arsenal Football Club wholeheartedly supports Mikel Arteta's post-match comments after yet more unacceptable refereeing and VAR errors on Saturday evening. Well, where were you after the Spurs match? Because it would have carried much more weight, wouldn't it, if Arteta had come out in behind Liverpool then and said, the right. And if Gary O'Neill had come in behind Liverpool and said, the right, and then they'd all started doing it. And then, you know, PGMOL, Howard Webb, I've got to do something about it. And it doesn't matter what, you know, someone's saying on Sky or on Talk Sport or what Martin Samuel thinks about it or whatever. They've come out as the people directly involved in the game and said, not good enough, it has to change. What we've got now instead is it's easy for them to just go, Arteta's out of order, Arteta should be fined, what are Arsenal doing? It was a joke when Liverpool did it, it's a joke when Arsenal are doing it. No one seems to be saying, well, why are they doing it? Do you know what I mean? Because it is shit.
Yeah, but look, I paused there because I could fucking talk for hours on this, right? And we haven't got hours to talk about it. For me, Mikel Arteta, I like Mikel Arteta generally. And I think he's made an absolute twat of himself with this. An absolute twat of himself, because to go from, we have to understand that mistakes happen, with what happened in our game against Spurs. So let's put this in context, right? What happened in our game against Spurs was unprecedented. It wasn't a debatable refereeing decision. It wasn't subjective. That's what we're talking about generally, right? All three of these things that he's talking about, plus 2 potential red cards in that game, all 5 of those things are all subjective refereeing decisions. Now, my big wider point on all of this, for everyone involved in football, me and you, every twat on the internet who talks about it, every supporter, every manager, this is what we all have to accept about football. Most of it is subjective. So do you know when a ref makes a decision you don't like? If some people think they were right and some people think they were wrong, you just have to swallow that. Because that's the game. Whether there's a video... something that drives me mad about VAR and has always driven me mad is this concept that people have in their mind that it's some form of fucking AI. It's another ref watching a replay.
Going,
That's all it is.
I think he's got both feet off the ground there, so I think he's out of control.
That's all it is.
Isn't it more of an orange though, lad?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
That's all it is, right? So when we've got decisions in sport that are subjective, and some people think
and you've got this clear and obvious get-out clause.
I mean, let's not even get into that, right? If it's subjective, that means there isn't a right or wrong answer. It's just subjective. And if you disagree with what other people think, so what? Sometimes you'll get the benefit of that. Sometimes you won't. It doesn't even out over the season. So let's stop saying that.
I hate that. I hate that.
But with all of that, with all of that, the thing that happened to us in the game against Spurs wasn't subjective and wasn't a fucking general disagreement as to whether it's a red or not, or whether it's
nothing like
it was a fucking goal that was disallowed because the referee in their team, loads of them, were fucking incompetent. The only lad with any competence in that whole fucking scenario was the lad who runs the fucking videos. That's why we had a cob on about it. And let me be clear as well, for anyone who didn't see us talk about that. Me and you and millions of other Liverpool fans were not asking for a replay.
No.
We still didn't ask afterwards for a replay. When Klopp asked for a replay and a mate rogue. Of yours were next to him in the fucking press conference was like, fucking hell, Jürgen, what have you done here? Klopp was out on a fucking limb asking for a replay.
Yeah.
There were some Liverpool fans asking for replays. I saw Rob Gutman, our mate, was asking for replay. Sound. Most of us weren't. What we were asking for was what we said. What we said was, why doesn't everyone come behind us so we can sort this shit out?
Yeah.
And that's where Arteta's making an absolute twat of himself, because he chose back then. He didn't choose to stay silent and he didn't choose to support it when it was nothing to do with Arsenal. And he could have just come in behind Liverpool, as you said, and said, they're right. The refereeing's not good enough. We need to sort this out. Instead of that, he's waited until there's subjective things that he disagrees with to make this strong statement. Well, do you know when he says he feels embarrassed? Sound, mate, you should be embarrassed about your reaction to all of it, because it's your reaction's a disgrace. And I like Carragher saying, I'm sick of the fucking clubs putting statements out as well.
Yeah.
Stop it. They're subjective decisions. Everyone, I know I'm on a rant here, but do you know, the ball over the line thing, I'm fucking sick of it. I'm sick of grown humans not understanding that a ball is round. So it can look like it's over a line, right?
Spherical,
from one angle. Yeah.
Before you get that,
I know, yeah. The number of and do you know what? Fair play to the people who put it on the fucking internet now. Pictures of Sabutio balls with fucking lines going, yeah, lads, just for those of you who aren't fucking bright enough to pick this up, it can look like it's over the line from one angle, but from above, it's not. Because not enough people are repeating this. I think loads of people don't know the rule. The whole of the ball has to be over the whole of the line, which means the edge of the ball has to be past the line, not the bottom of the ball, you fucking stupid bastards. All of these, right? And I'm with you. Watch them all back. I think it's a push in the back. But you know what? Gary Neville on telly didn't. He said, as a former defender, he's been the defender, throwing himself forward to try and flick the ball on. So he didn't think it was a foul. Well, guess what? That's just tough shit. It's subjective. That isn't a VAR mistake. That isn't a refereeing mistake. It's subjective. So you've just got to swallow it. And that's where I think there's a line here for everybody. And most people are on the wrong side of it. And back to what you started this with and my fucking ranting monologue now. You've missed your fucking chance, boys. So fuck yous.
Yeah.
I made up it's happened to you.
Yeah. And look, you know what you're getting now is like sort of mad proposals of how to fix it. So I was seeing this thing and I thought that definitely won't happen. Again, my mate Henry Winter, I seen a tweet from him earlier saying what needs to happen is straight away.
I'm looking forward to this.
He essentially said, paraphrasing, that in the next international break, they should get managers with Howard Webb, and they just all have a big meeting and decide how they can all sort it out. And it's like, yeah, that's what we wanted after Spurs, mate, when it was like a monumental fuck up that like no one had seen before, a new level of incompetency. And all we were asking as Liverpool fans were, well, aren't you going to do something about this to change this, to make sure it doesn't happen again? And now, after an incident where it's nothing like as bad, and where, you know, as you say, like Havertz could easily have been sent off, so you've benefited from a decision in the same game.
This is the bit, sorry to interrupt you for another ramble. This is the other bit that you're making a twat of yourself, Arteta, and every other manager, and I'll include our manager on this as well, by the way. If you're going to rant about referees after the game, at least have the good sense to include your own that benefited you.
Yeah,
at least have the good sense to say, well, we got off with one, potentially. Because guess what? That was subjective. Some people think Havertz should have been sent off. But because it went your way, you're not mentioning it.
I think if you run, leave the floor with both feet and go through them, then you're out of control and it's a red card, based on what I've seen other people get red cards for. And you can actually see one of the Newcastle players saying to him, you've tried to do him there. And I thought that was telling as well, because there's a pro on the floor, in the ground, saw it unfold in front of him, and that's his reaction. That's telling as well. And then I've seen some ex-pros who are pundits say it wasn't. And then some ex-pros who are pundits say it was. And it's like, okay.
So same point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's subjective. And guess what, Mikel? That went in your favour.
Yeah.
A subjective decision went in your favour, and you've completely ignored that.
And there isn't a conclusive, no one's got a conclusive camera angle of whether the ball was in or out either. So that's that one sorted. Apparently, someone's put there that Keys and Gray made some animation showing it was in, but that's not available to the VAR, is it? That's not a thing.
No, in fair, look, if I was Arteta and Arsenal, the point I'd be making is, and I think Neville made this point, it's absolute madness that with so many cameras in a ground, we haven't got... How is there not one camera down each line?
I know.
Do you know what I mean? It's nuts, that. But anyway, that's a side point.
I know. Well, I remember saying that about VAR before it even came in. That, like, are we actually ready for it? Like, have we got the technology to do it?
I thought this against Bournemouth. There's no VAR in the early rounds of the League Cup until the semis. And you're like, oh, okay. Doesn't that question the integrity of the whole competition? Because couldn't someone get to the semi-final with VAR, something that VAR would rule out? But
it's not in the Championship either, is it?
No, well, exactly.
But then I've seen someone, sharing some of the decisions from the Championship saying, look at this, and you're saying you don't want VAR.
Well, this is my other side. Imagine now if they took away VAR, the fucking chaos it would cause.
I know.
Because there would be people clearly offside. Yeah, that would have been ruled out. Here's a handball. Here's a foul. And this is the problem with it. Everyone expects perfection, and nobody. Genuinely, look. I'll throw in a little defense of Arteta here. I saw a little clip of Guardiola this morning talking about, and he actually made the point of saying, I'm not speaking for Mikel Arteta, I'm talking for myself. And he's made a point you've made in the past, that you're putting a mic under our nose when we're really emotional, and it's hard to...
And they know.
And you know you're doing it. Yeah. And it's hard. The problem Mikel Arteta's got is, not only did he repeat himself time and time again in his multiple post-match interviews, Arsenal have come out. So the club have made tits of themselves. Because I heard someone, it was Martin Keown was on Match of the Day, and I was just watching it on my way in to hear what they said. An ex-Arsenal legend, probably not unfair to say that. And he was saying, I think Mikel Arteta, if he'd have just taken a few minutes to think about this.
They don't get it though, do they? They don't get a few minutes because they're contractually obliged to be in front of those cameras.
But that's where the footy club's mad, isn't it? Putting out the statement.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
We wholeheartedly agree.
Because you've doubled down on it and you've created the story. Like we were talking in, our other podcast that we've, the Late Challenge, we've done something on Man United and Eric Ten Hag and said, like, he hasn't took a moment lots of times when you feel as though if he did, there'd be less of a fuss around him. But it you know, they're contractually set up to fail almost, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Because that is the bit that, you know, they were trying to push for half-time interviews as well, weren't they? Yeah. You know, they want as much of that as, because they know that that's the sell. They know that, you know, people tune in, people share clips. It creates headlines when managers flip because they're in the moment, their emotions have got the better of them, and it'll keep happening. But yeah, I agree that, you know, in this particular instance, the statement is wild because you've had time to think about that. You must surely know as well that even though it was a totally different situation and worse, by the way, that when Liverpool did it, look at the criticism that they got, look at the shit that they got, look at the headlines it created, look at all the furore online it created. What, you want a bit of that, do you? Well, like, to what end?
But even, like, put it in context, okay? Liverpool got shit for putting out a statement saying we're just reviewing our options. And everyone read into that, whatever they wanted to read into it, which in hindsight, you're like, well, that was a mistake putting that out, wasn't it? They've come out, Arsenal come out and said, we wholeheartedly support Arteta's post-match comments, in which he's saying refereeing decisions. Think about, just boil it down, right? Technically, specifically, what they're saying. We wholeheartedly agree with our manager's post-match comments that subjective decisions that went against us were wrong. And you're like, okay. This is one of those instances where if I was Howard Webb, I would come out strongly against the football club. I would come out strongly and say, well, in defence of referees, there are always going to be subjective decisions that you don't like because they went against you. And if I was Webb, I'd say, I'm noticing you're not going against us for not sending off Kai Havertz. And Newcastle could want Kai Havertz sent off, couldn't they? So in the same game, they think we're bell ends because we didn't send off Kai Havertz, and you think we're bell ends because we didn't disallow a goal. Well, where do we go from there?
I know. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. Some wild comments there that I've no idea what they relate to. So we'll leave that. Yeah,
that's our post-match entertainment.
Yeah. Tune into those comments if you like. There was a little poll lashed up there before the season. Did you expect Liverpool to challenge for the title? Of the people who've responded so far, 57%. So it just changed. 56% said no. 44% said yes. I think we didn't, it's fair to say. And you know, I'm still on the side of, I'm positive about what I've seen. I think it's great that, you know, we've played so well and come back from moments of adversity. And yesterday was another one, not the result we wanted, but still says to me, you've got a good group. We could still do things. We can still go places. There's loads of the season still left to play as well. So yeah, there will be better days than yesterday to come. I'm sure of that. And we'll be here, I'm sure, too, to talk about them. Do check us out on the Late Challenge podcast as well, where we do different stuff and it's not just footy and things like that. Okay, we shall see you again. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you've only tuned in late and you missed the start, remember you can go back and watch it again. You can listen to it later as a podcast as well on This Is Anfield's channels. Hope you've enjoyed it. Up the Reds.